Hello, welcome to Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LotraStream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and I'll be with you for the next hour, hanging out, having some fun. This will be our final show of 2023. Taking a couple weeks off, and I will see you back in January. Should be same time, same everything, same me, a couple weeks older. But the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be gone. So, final show of 2023 here, and mostly what we're going to do is go through the news. We'll have time for your questions, and I'll be in game running Corsairs of Umbar. We're going through the main story, and I believe we left off at chapter 2.10. So we got some work to do, some things to see, and some excitement to be had, and we're going to be doing that here today to wrap up the year. Happy holidays to everyone as well. A lot of holidays out there that people are celebrating, so I'm not going to pick just one. But yeah, lots of people having good times with friends, family, found family, and what have you. And it's really nice to see. And if you're struggling, well, sorry for that. And I know that our hearts are often with you as well during this time. All right, so what's happening? This is really crafting week, is it not? In the Lord of the Rings Online. And unfortunately, I have to admit, when it comes to the details of some of the finer points of our crafting system, I tend to rely on folks who actually do that work, like, say, Orion. I do some crafting, but not nearly enough. And there's a lot of stuff happening this week. So let's get a little bit to the news here, and just kind of see what's up. First thing I wanted to do is put this up on the screen. So we have an article that went out this week from Orion talking a little bit about the crafting update that went in this week with update 38.1.1 and a little bit beyond. So if you're into crafting, please do go to Lotra.com and check this article out. I'm not going to read the whole article out loud for you, but it talks a little bit about how the new Umbar tier of crafting guilds will work, how it'll function, and how it's going to interact with everything else. So to join it, you just need to be an honored master of the crafting guild and then earn enough rep with the guild to become an Umbar guild member. This is a change from how we wanted to do it way back when we first talked about it, where we were going to try to separate those things out so you could just essentially start with Umbar. But there's some technical hurdles that forced us to abandon that plan and sort of move to a more traditional way of doing it. So that's what we're doing. But we are adding ways to move through the Umbar guild member tier quickly. So when you join the ranks of an Umbar crafting guild, you'll have access to guild recipes that allow you to make gear, items, and other things. You'll unlock daily quests that require a recipe you can learn from the guild leader, and it'll earn you guild rank and also count toward your weekly rewards from the guild and what have you. And you'll get access to create new upgradable items available only to the craft guilds of Umbar. So you can read this article in its entirety here to get a good sense of what's happening. You can see it in game now by going to the guild hall. I was able to get there yesterday. I know that we have a bunch of lower level crafters who are somewhat struggling to get to the level 150 zone area. And I think that that's something perhaps in the future we'll be able to address. There was a forum thread about just maybe adding a milestone there. That sounds like a possibility. There may be some other possibilities as well, but I think that is something we'll probably be looking at here in the near future. But for now, you're going to need to make sure that you can get to that area. There are ways to do it. There's some people on the forums and such that'll help if you need it. I was level 140 and able to get to it without any major issues. I did take a little damage. I did get dismounted, but it was fine. It overall worked out just fine. That's also true. We put out, we've shared it on social media this week. Bloodborne has a particularly great video on this guild system as well. So if you're like, hold up, could you start even way farther back than you did? Bloodborne has you covered. It's a pretty short video too, and it'll really get you started with what you need to do. You can find a link to that on our social media, so either Facebook or twitter.com/Lotro, and you can find a link to it there. But that's up on Lotro.com right now, and you can learn a little bit more about kind of what's going on with crafting here. I did want to mention that we have reduced the cooldown on Umbar crafting recipes from 18 hours to 5 minutes. Just a small tweak in time there, from 18 hours to 5 minutes. And the reasoning for that, as explained by Orion yesterday, is that there's a daily quest associated with it, and due to the way it was set up, it requires the execution of the recipe. So some players were executing the recipe without getting the quest, and thus being locked out of a turn-in for 18 hours, so instead we made it 5 minutes for now, while we work to change the structure of the quest to require the crafted object to advance the quest objective. That'll prevent that kind of order of operations issue, which could lead you to have an unintendedly long cooldown. I did want to put this up on the page as well. Let me put on my marketing hat just real quick, because time is running out to get these Sublime Patron Coffers. These are going to be available through December 20th, so through next Wednesday is the last opportunity you will have to get these for the foreseeable future. We have them set up, all of our Sublime Patron Coffers, that we can theoretically in the future bring them back if we want to. We haven't said, and we're not going to say, that this is a one-time ever thing. That said, we also don't really have any plans to bring them back anytime soon, so I would suggest not waiting if you are interested. And you have through December 20th in order to get this Sublime Patron Coffer in the Lotro store. So I did want to call that out. Last thing of the year. Let me make sure I got that up there. Another bit of news here I wanted to quick get to is the Yuletide Festival. That is happening in-game. That's our big bit of seasonal fun. You can find the guide over on Lotro.com, and that runs through January 2nd, being shut off at 3 a.m. Eastern on January 3rd. And you'll get a thing in-game if you haven't logged in since the Yuletide Festival started, but most of you have at this point, so not going to get too much more into it, but you got time yet. You have through January 2nd, and I hope you're enjoying this year's Yuletide Festival. Final bit of news that I had is that one of my I've got a couple of tasks on my to-do list here that are going to have to get kicked into January. I am doing some work next week, but only a little bit, and then I'm off the week following. So the public event schedule, I was hoping to get it done by end of December for the first time ever, and that didn't happen. So this will be kicked into January in terms of when I should be able to get this done. I looked at the calendar just today though, and I can fill out a little bit to extend into January, into I believe kind of through February, and then our list is going to have to be updated. We have kind of a master document that's currently being worked on related to our world event system, and that looks like it's mostly populated, through like the end of February, and then we're filling in the gaps currently from like March onward. So once a full year or close to it is available, I will get the master document here updated to 2024, but I think what's going to have to happen is if I can get it done in the next couple of days, I will. Otherwise, first thing in January when I get back, I'll update this through the end of February in English, French, and German, and then we'll get the master calendar done as soon as the rest of the bullet points are all filled in and it's all scheduled in-game. But we do have a couple of things I could mention. This is not on the list because I haven't added it yet. But this is what we've got planned. So when I look at everything I see here is all current. So we're clear through January 4th with that 25% XP boost. And then after that, on the 11th, we currently have scheduled a return of the Ill Omens Skirmish event. And that'll run until 3 a.m. on February 1st. So through January 31st. So Ill Omens starting at 10 a.m. Eastern on January 11th and running through January 31st, shut off 3 a.m. Eastern on February 1st. Then on January 13th, we're going to be bringing the Combe Forester event back. And that'll run from 10 a.m. on the 13th until 3 a.m. on the 23rd. Hobnanigans is the next bit. That's already on the calendar. And then we do have the Forester event coming back in February. Remember, it's on a rotation, so at some point you'll just kind of see the public event schedule to track that. And yeah, that's really, I guess we've got the LI reward track set for, mid-February, as stated on the list there, and a few other things. But at that point, it gets a little spotty. We need to talk to some of the people who are working on the West schedule and get that all penned in. So, but I did want to mention that we got Ill Omens really kicking off here in mid-January. So that's the current state of that. All right. Before I get in game, let me take a minute to go through chat and see what's up. You named your sublime pet Erebor. Boar. I appreciate it. That is my kind of joke. I appreciate that very much. Is the train up and running? The track has been laid around the holiday tree. And the only thing I need to do is stick a couple track pins in a section that I somehow lost the pins on, and then get the train set up. But yes, I have an HO skill train that goes around my Christmas tree. So. Oh, also Boromir, Boar. Gosh, the jokes are writing themselves. Yeah, I would expect us to potentially add a milestone or travel skill to the Umbar Craft Guild section. Once you get into Umbar, it's easy. It's just getting to Umbar if you're a low-level character that is a little bit of work. I mean, I think in general, we're not, we don't typically require alts to be, or crafting alts to be like high level or anything. But there are some advantages and disadvantages to keeping your crafting alt low level. This might be one of them. Kind of temporary issues and such, getting to places when new things is new. Any ideas about a hardcore server kind of like DDO, or maybe just a buff saying not dead yet or something? Okay, so for those who aren't familiar with the way kind of our special servers over on Dungeons & Dragons Online, DDO doesn't do legendary worlds, which are, progression time-based unlock servers. Instead, they do one-and-done hardcore servers, and that really comes from the community there, where going back to the game's earliest days, we created a kind of player-run hardcore permadeath way of playing the game. And there still are, permadeath guilds in the game world, where once you die, that character is done. And we were able to implement that as a server. So the idea is you go through the game, and if you ever die, yeet. And in that game, you go to a place called the Land of Lost Souls. We clearly wouldn't be able to do that on the Lotro side. But something like that, basically a timeout place where that character is done on that server for that season. And the seasons typically go for about 90 days. And then we've got leaderboards that they'll track for various in-game systems like... well, I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, the idea has long come up occasionally. Well, what about doing something like that on the Lotro side? We could, and I think we've kicked around quite a few ideas over the years, including recently, about what we might be able to do over on the Lotro side as an equivalent. So I can't announce anything today, but the thought of having one of the legendary worlds or some event system or something like that could be an optional hardcore experience if that's what you're looking for, has certainly crossed our mind. And because it's pretty successful over on the DDO side, people really dig it. So for on the Lotro side, our attempts to implement higher difficulty systems have sometimes been appreciated, and sometimes people are like, yeah. Like the Eye of Sauron effect is a little bit of an attempt to be like, all right, well, you can opt into a more hardcore landscape difficulty and then get benefits from that, along with drawbacks like the Eye of Sauron. And I think that some of the feedback on that has been a little mixed. Thankfully, it's an optional system. No one actually needs to do it if you don't want to. But I think that it's a little different on the Lotro side. I'm not sure how a permadeath server would exactly be received. Hard to say. Hard to say. I'd be curious to know if anyone ever wanted to have a conversation on the forums or elsewhere about it. I'd love to kind of read more about how people feel about the idea of a server where you, if you ever die, that character is locked out of that server until the end of the event. The season in that case. And then in that case, the way they do it on the DDO side is there's like a period of like 3 months then afterwards where you can transfer that character off the hardcore server for free to any game world. So it's not like they're gone for good. They're just gone from that season, and then they can become a free alt, essentially, to preserve your items and progress that you made over on the hardcore world. So... oh, it's great to hear, a Lost-Shire Hobbit. I think our Yuletide Festival holds up great as a holiday winter-themed event. It's fantastic. Will there be a possibility of a fourth profession option before next year? No. We will not be releasing a fourth profession between now and December 31st. I suppose I could mention, speaking of things that happened this week, we did actually have an update. This Wednesday's update, update 38.1.1, is and will be, fingers crossed, our last game update. Oop, that didn't work. No. Don't click. Be careful where you click. Alright. Update 38.1.1. Theoretically your last update of 2023. Brings Umbar crafting guilds. You can read about the release notes and such there. We've got some itemization fixes, including some fixes in the Combe Forester event, travel skill items in the Bloody Eagle Tavern, and other bits. A little bit of polish related to Umbar and a few other things. And you could read the release notes for that over on Lotro.com. But that is intended to be our last game update of the year. We are planning to do weekly downtimes next Wednesday and the Wednesday after. Those are just going to be basic maintenance resets, though, to promote the health of the game world. We have found that doing a reboot once a week like that has benefits. So we'll keep doing that even with kind of minimal folks around and things like that over the holiday. So... yeah, so there are level 150-ish hostile mobs near the guild hall. This is absolutely true, Egarthur. I ran into that yesterday when I was running there myself. I was 140, so obviously not like level 50 or 105 or whatever, but at 140 I was able to get there just fine. I just hit auto run and just kept running. Maybe not everyone's going to have that experience, but for the most part, I think it's fairly doable. And once you're there, you'll be okay. But I agree, and you know, we've been listening to the feedback. I'm sure we'll end up doing something about it as soon as we can, which is not going to be between now and the end of the year, because Wednesday was our last patch. Fingers crossed. All right, let's get in game, huh? All right, so I am on chapter 210. I am talking to Kabar by the eastern entrance of Linear in King's Gondor. I think we're about, yeah, where King Elessar and Queen Arwen's journey westward will next pass into Dor en Aernil and the Ringlow Vale. So we're going to be going on a little bit of trip here, if I recall. Let me turn up my audio.
You took care of everything on the list? You're good at this, aren't you?
What can I say? The king asked me to direct everyone through Dor en Aernil into the Ringlow Vale, where he and Queen Arwen will rejoin us. The Grand Lighthouse of Beradriel is in our way. He wants to stop by such a place. And that is located, or that's located off here. So we're going out north, kind of back over into the Yumbar area and heading back to that tower. That's where we are headed. Oh yeah, we do got our festive Hobbit gifts too. Hope you've been enjoying some of that. We listened to your feedback about dwarf candles. I could say that. That worked out alright. Yeah, I'm aware that there are a bunch of people with crafters below level 100. This is not the first time we've run into this issue, but we'll get it sorted. I mean, I have to admit, there's a part of me that feels maybe we should just... Can of worms. No, I'm not going to say that. I think it's great if you found a way to engage with high-level crafting systems despite not being high-level. But there's also a part of me that's like, alright, should that really be the expectation? But it's how the game is set up, so. I mean, I think for now, you know, players are just going to have to find ways to get to that area, and then, you know, as soon as we have an opportunity to address it, I'm sure we will, through one form or another. Whether it's yeeting out a few of those mobs from the entrance area to putting in a milestone, or, I mean, there's a bunch of things you could do. I will leave it up to others to make that determination. I mean, I definitely get the amount of work it would take to level all your crafters to high level, so I'm not really arguing anything. We want you to have fun, and we want you to enjoy crafting if you like crafting, so. Focus on the goal. So, I was not here last week. The reason is I was in sunny California. I was in San Diego, visiting the fine folks over at Daybreak, our publisher.
I never thought to see such happy
And that was
days as
cool.
these.
I had a really good time. It was all work. And I'm not even joking. It was all work. But at the same time, it was really good. So what happened, a lot of it, it's kind of internal marketing stuff, and that I'm not really going to get into. But I will say, in general, the purpose of last week's meeting was to get some folks like myself over on the SSG side, together with the folks who we interact with on a regular basis over on the publisher side, to meet and plan our 2024. We looked over 2023, both in a thing like community sentiment and you know, did they like it, did they not like it, how did it go? How did 2023 go? Was essentially one of those days of meetings, both in terms of things like sentiment, but then also metrics, you know, how did it sell, how many people played it, you know, how many people are still playing it, all these other kinds of questions. And so we had really a day of that, and then a day of 2024. So we looked back to the year that was, we looked ahead to the year that is, figured out, okay, this is everything that we really think we're going to be doing. Gosh, that's a lot. How are we going to make that happen? And then figured out how to make it happen is really what the goal of the week was. And it went great. It went really, really great. It was awesome. And we got a lot done and planned a lot, and our 2024, fingers crossed, is going to be quite a bit smoother as a result, hopefully. We'll see. But at least we're pretty well planned for it, so things are looking really good there. Alright, cool, we got a nice sketch. So it wasn't a, hey, let's go out to dinner and pretend we're doing marketing. It was a actual series of business meetings in California. It took all week. But gosh, am I glad we did it. It turned out really good. Alright, nice sketch of Beradriel.
Ah, thank you. The sketch is painful now, but I will keep it close.
As a reminder of what the enemies of Gondor will not hesitate to take from us. As we make our way north through Torin Ernil to my hometown of Ethring, let us face whatever foes we encounter. Defeat enemies on our way to other places. We are heading into the Ringalo Vale eventually. I think heading up to Ethring. So, let me stop my phone buzzing. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So in terms of what's in the store for 2024, you know, we had the marketing meetings and things that we know that we're going to be talking about, in addition to like some programs and efforts that have been underway, progress to that and what have you. Like, I don't have everything I could say today, but there's been some talk about how to better support live streamers and other content creators, you know, as the content creator community becomes, I mean, they've been important for, gosh, a decade plus now, in terms of your total marketing picture, but especially in recent years, content creators are in some ways the lifeblood of kind of your marketing and other things, right? It's a really important thing that for the business. And so we've been working for quite a while on some things to better be able to communicate and utilize the content creators who are reaching out to us often on a daily basis related to, hey, you want to do something? Can we do something? What if, you know, let's collab. And so we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there. But we got some cool things about that. And a lot of other plans for not just content, but community things as well. You know, will 2024 be the year that we finally go to social media network unnamed? Maybe, right? And so we'll see what we end up doing exactly. But we've had a lot of cool conversations. And then on the team side, they've, for weeks now, other than this week's patch, right? The teams have largely been either heads down working on whatever it is that they're working on for the early next year, if they've got a task that's releasing in January, for example. Because we do have, most likely, our 38.2 will be something like mid-January. But if you're not doing that, you're largely focused on 2024 planning. And so the Lotro team has been heads down, really going from brainstorming to reality to know we're actually doing this. Starting to put things down on paper and really hammer out the full 2024 and in some cases beyond picture. And that's where we are. So it's a very interesting time. Pretty soon, you know, I would imagine when we get back in January, one of the first things we're going to do is take a look at the status of where we are for 2024 and move it into the stage where it can come out as a producer's letter or de facto equivalent of a producer's letter, however you want to describe it. letter from Orion, me, and the team, and what have you.
Gondor has a
So I
king
would
again.
hope, if everything keeps cooking along really like it has, that in the next, that we'll be in a position to have our 2024 roadmap out. Hopefully in the first half of the first quarter of 2024. We'll see. I've made these promises a billion times before. And these things are always a lot more complicated than it looks to actually get released. But, in theory, we're cooking along well. It's on track. It's looking awesome. And we should have more to say here. Gosh, if we can get it... last year, I looked back as part of this 2023 year in review. I looked back, and we did, in fact, release our producer's letter in January last year. We don't always do that. In fact, we might more often not do that than do that. But we did last year. And we got the same people working on it this year. And if anything, we're maybe ahead of the game compared to where we were last year. So all that bodes well to get you the information as soon as we can. Especially for things like 2024 roadmaps. You don't go straight from the meeting room to typing it out on the forums and publishing it, right? You got all sorts of people who need to sign off on that sort of stuff. So, Haderb, I can't get into a particular moderation issue that might be happening on the world. I have received a private message, presumably maybe from you, and a couple other people who were involved in that particular bit of server drama. And all I can really say about that is just, if you need to, grab screenshots and file those tickets. CS will be able to handle it. But we're not going to allow people to name and shame on the forums, whether valid or not. We never have and we never will. And that goes for the stream as well. I'm not going to call out people on stream and try to deal with some kind of personality conflict that might be happening in the game world. No one should ever be harassed. Even if they were perhaps harassing someone else. Everyone should have better behavior. Alright, well, I'll have to look up the claim that tickets are being filed daily on that. I know when I had taken a look yesterday, I had not seen daily tickets. That's not to say I didn't see anything. But I certainly hadn't seen daily tickets. But I know it blew up on the forums yesterday, and I had to do some work related to that. So. I'm on Landreval. I have a character on Brandywine, a lower level character on Brandywine that I've been playing too. That's my Mariner. But I really wanted to focus on the story of Corsairs of Umbar here, since its release. And so I'm working through the main epic here on Stampion, and then we'll probably pop back to Brandywine or do whatever we end up wanting to do in terms of content. I get a lot of private messages and forum threads kind of asking me to intervene in disputes that are happening in-game, and I really don't generally have much visibility to determine any kind of truth. I could see what people are telling me and accept it at face value, and then when I've got multiple people telling me conflicting things, all I can really, to some extent, do is just pass along the messages and let people who actually do have the ability to look into chat logs and things like that do the work to do that. heading back up to Ethring. No, like, you know, when I said it was a work trip, I meant it was a work trip. There was zero time to kind of do personal fun bits in California. We were in meetings from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. And then afterwards, there was like a couple of team dinners and stuff, so it's not like there wasn't any fun. We also went to an escape room as a group. It was like a team building exercise, and that was fun too. They had axe throwing, although we didn't do it. But otherwise, no, it was all work. We were there for work, not fun.
So, you're back, Kaibar. Now that Ethring doesn't need you. Your mother will weep to hear it.
I should warn people, this is kind of a rough section of the story,
own
to be
way
honest.
in the world.
So Kaibar left, and now he's back at the request, you know, of his king, and they're not exactly thrilled to see him, so...
It is true that I left home before war seemed certain, but...
I should have come back before now. My family and friends had to endure the darkness Sauron sent before his armies, just as I did, but they had to do it without the armies of Minas Tirith near at hand.
The shadow of war is now behind us, and Gondor rejoices.
She doesn't want to see you, Kaibar.
You're with the new king, just as Kaibar seems to be. You can keep moving, same as the nephew. We here in Ethring know the elves are behind putting this Elisar on the throne, and we're not going to let them interfere with the life of the Ringlow Vale. When Kaibar left, it broke his mother's heart, and broke again when he became a puppet of the elves. She doesn't want to see him. Poor dude. I don't have time to be upset about this. I was given a task by my king, and I'm going to see it done. So, let's see what we can do. Nope is the answer to that. Actually, my other person is over here. It's true. I had that happen the other day. Someone is saying, you know, just remember we don't really let you know what moderation actions were taken, and that's true. That's company policy and just a generally good idea not to inform reporters about what you did. Although it can be frustrating sometimes. Because you'll say I'll infract someone on the forums, and someone else will get infracted too, and they'll be like, Alex, how you punished me and not the other person? And I can't reply to them and be like, I did. And, so it, you know, I get it. I get it. But, just something to keep in mind. We don't announce actions taken in game. That said, it sounds like on Laurelin you're gonna know pretty darn well once we take care of that issue. And, I'll follow up with CS this afternoon. Make sure it's still on their radar. And let them handle it, though. It would be interesting to hear why the direction of crafting couldn't change like he envisioned. Orion has actually talked about this fairly extensively. the idea was we were going to disassociate the requirement to have a lower tier done in order to start with the upper tier. The idea would be, perhaps in the future then, you would, when you get Corsairs of Umbar, you can do the Corsairs of Umbar crafting, and when you get to whatever we do after that, you'll get to whatever we do after that crafting. You know, the idea is to not really require, or to minimize the amount of past work necessary to unlock the new work, as it were, for crafting. But there was a technical hurdle where the system simply could not communicate in that function, and the underlying communication necessary to enable it would be a significant enough software engineering task that it ultimately couldn't be done within the time frame of doing any crafting work at this time. And so rather than shut off the crafting work out of Corsairs or whatever, because we did have a lot of crafting stuff we wanted to do, we instead opted to essentially preserve the unlock system as it has historically been, rather than do what we would like it to do, and then hopefully in the future be able to do that when we have those resources around and able to do the work. Yeah, K-Bar is pretty defeated. I told my uncle I'd leave, if that's what my mom truly wants. But I'd like to get some of the sketches I had inside when I left for Minas Tirith. He said when I was gone, my mother burned them all. There's nothing left for me here, and the king and queen have not arrived. Let's move on to Calimbel. The king said he might rejoin us in Lemedon. So we are heading up to Lemedon. To Calimbel. Poor guy. I suppose, you know, I could mention, this is somewhat opportune. People often over this time of the year struggle with family, and if that's you over the holidays, know that there are people out there who appreciate you, love you, and want the best for you. Sometimes, you know, found family is as important as real family. So. I don't know the answer as to why Gondorian armor was removed from the Yetin Moors. I would need to check again, probably with the riot on that one. I guess I hadn't heard that. You know, we'll see how much of, historically, our producers' letters are the best snapshot of the picture of the year at the time that they are published. And on the Lord of the Rings Online side, we've often been pretty good at sticking to it. But even when the producer's letter gets released, it's important to note that that is what we intend to do at the moment of its publication. But we also tend to be a studio that is willing to change our minds and shift direction if we feel it's important. So, we'll see. We'll see. But I think we've got some pretty big plans for 2024. And some things you'll be very excited to read about. And then eventually see. I would also point out that historically we tend to release maybe a little bit of the information before the actual letter is ready. Just because by the time the letter is done, that's when, say, another 3 to 4 week process begins. When you're done with a producer's letter, and it's in a publishable state, then you have to add at least a couple weeks to it before you can actually publish it, because it has to go through various legal and licensure and just a whole bunch of approvals. You got to get your assets ready and your screenshots done, and get it all localized into French and German and English and all the other kinds of things. So there's a point where we're like basically ready to tell everybody, and then we have to wait a couple of weeks. And it is not uncommon that sometime during that couple of week period, things get leaked out a little bit. We'll see if that happens this year. The King and Queen have come to Caelenville. It's true. They're here with their entire retinue. I saw them going to speak with Galangarn. Look for his shop to the northwest, inside of the city. Okay, so checking loots. You got frustrated with Lothar the other day because up until Gondor the Epic had story versions as alternatives to big battles. And then you ran into a point where that stopped. So that was a relatively, I mean not that recent, but within the past 5 years addition to that content to enable some of the particularly, I guess you could say maybe just provide a path if you didn't want to do that big battles content. Because some of that content, you know, I think we would maybe do a little differently were we to do it today. But it's true that we weren't able to do that work throughout the entirety of the epic story as it relates to big battles. So there are parts of big battles in Gondor you still need to do. Maybe at some point in the future we'll be able to further smooth that out. But that's really the reasoning why it's around for a while and then stops, is we tried to smooth over some of the particular big battles that were a little problematic in that area. Well, I'll still let you do it if you want to.
When I awoke this morning, I did not think I should be made the king's own merchant by the afternoon.
Yeah. Soorne, Smith?
Gullingham has been promised nothing of the kind by either my husband or myself.
How were your travels? Were you able to help the folk of Dora and Erniel and the Ringlow Vale?
So I tell him about Kabar's unfortunate homecoming. He says, I'm sorry to hear that. The war was not easy for anyone, and I sympathize with the plight of Kabar's family, even as I believe they treat him unfairly. Our course now is to speak with Prince Imrahil and of Dol Amroth. I've sent Rosarin ahead to prepare the way. Western entrance. Alright, I'm going for a while. I don't think this character has fast travel unlocked to that. Well, maybe I'll just ride out. Hadurb is saying that you have a particular challenge with losing your mouse cursor. And I have to admit, I do honestly myself a little bit because of my older eyes. And I agree that it would be nice to see some further accessibility there. We've long wanted to do a lot of work related to our user interface. Clearly there's a lot of work that could be done there. And I think adding some accessibility options, whether it be simply larger mouse pointers, or they'll have ones that like leave trails and things so that you can find it more easily, or higher contrast ones as another example, would be beneficial. And I feel pretty strongly that were we able to fit in the wider UI work that could incorporate something like that, we totally would. I know this sunset, right? How nice is that? The area around here is beautiful. I think the story in Helm's Deep, that kind of story version in Helm's Deep, was really a matter of someone on the team going above and beyond and sort of doing that work on the margins because they just felt very strongly that they wanted to do it. And that does happen on the development team sometimes. You'll see people as like, alright, I know we don't have time to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I care that much. And I think that that may have been the case here. Which, fortunately, is great, except that you still don't necessarily then have the time to do all the rest of the work. So you kind of just need to, in some ways, in that respect, be like, alright, glad we got that part done. I think the mouse pointer in Lotro is particularly prone to being lost a little bit because of how colorful and pretty our landscapes tend to be, and the fact that the mouse pointer is relatively small and kind of white. So it tends to blend more in the background than even for Dungeons & Dragons Online for me. I guess I'm not exactly sure why that is. I'm sure someone who knows more about user interface design could explain it. But I'm with you. I think sometimes our mouse cursor could be pretty hard to track. You've actually seen me do that on stream a few times, where I've been like, where is that? Where's the thing? That's true. I believe there are also add-ons already that will do some of that work. But I understand why an add-on may not be the solution that you're actually looking for.
Welcome to King's Gondor, friend.
Bye. Back when the top resolution was 800 by 600, this was less of an issue. I don't know what you're talking about. It plays fine on my 17-inch CRT. I mean, the thing weighs 75 pounds, but... that square picture, man. Rectangular. NEC multi-sync 17, yeah. That's what, when I first played Lord of the Rings Online and DDO, that's what I was using, is I had a 17-inch Hewlett-Packard CRT that was about, I don't know, 2.5 feet deep. And weighed so much. So I think, you know, there's a conversation happening about whether, you know, whether it's good enough that that accessibility features get added as a plugin? And I think that the answer is no, largely. That really should be something that every game is able to just do without needing a user community to provide that sort of work. That would be the goal, though. Reality is unfortunately not always the case. That's true. If you go way back, I was playing games on monochrome. My old Apple IIe. Well, thank you, Lost Shire. I really appreciate that. You know, I love doing these streams. They can be stressful sometimes, but I do like doing it. And I really appreciate that the community has gotten something from it as well. You know, it's nice to chat with people. I mean, you're talking to King Retro Nerd here, so... I still have 3 CRTs in the house, but I don't expect that to be normal behavior. It's tricky, Mystic 83, when we see requests to speed up, like, say, old crafting so that you can get to the new. People put in a lot of work on their crafting as well, and while you don't want to get too much into kind of a sunk fallacy argument, you also do want to respect the work that people have done. So sometimes you want to be careful if you're like, and now no one ever has to do that again. You know, if a lot of people in your game have already done that work, they're like, well, that kind of sucks. That doesn't mean you can't make it better. But there's a difference between, like I say, you just want to respect the work that's also been done today. So,
It is good to see cheer restored to the Palace of the Swan. When last I was here, the mood was grim.
all right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here then. So we will start.
Court, King Elisar and Queen Arwen and their loyal companions.
And then on this cliffhanger.
I bid you welcome to Dol Amroth and the Palace of the Swan. My daughter and her friends were just leaving.
Is this a poor time? I hope we bring no interruption.
Oh, none at all, my king. Dorthaneth was a help to me when I ruled Dol Amroth while my father was away. She was a dear friend, and remains so. I cherish her visits, but this one was just ending. I pray you will stay a little longer, leader of the Arboretum. I had hoped to speak with you as well.
My folk expect my return. I should not keep them waiting.
The Queen asks you to stay. Surely you can heed her wish?
If you would come here, please.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up right here. Thank you so much for watching Court of the Rings online, or Court of the Rings in 2023. And I'm taking a couple weeks off. I will see you in January with a whole lot more. If you haven't seen it yet, earlier this week, Scenario put together a casual stroll, the last casual stroll of 2023 as well, looking at the Frozen Lands. You can find that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lord of the Rings. thanks so much for being here. We've got Tolkien Professor. I think Druid's Fire is filling in for Tolkien Professor up next, and you can find our full schedule over on twitch.tv/LotraStream. Happy holidays, everyone. See you soon.